My Two Dads won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
Star Wars. Episode 4, A New Hope. Or technically when it came out, it was just Star Wars.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Or The Star Wars, as it was originally known.
Yeah, but it was never released as The Star Wars.
No, but a lot of parents are like, you gonna go see the Star Wars?
Probably the best choice he ever made was dropping the from The Star Wars.
Do you want to go see a Star War?
Yeah, we got a Star Wars at home.
You got your Star War at home.
Yeah, it's so much fun to go back. It's May.
Yeah.
It's May the 4th. Be with you.
Yeah.
Or whatever that day is in May.
The 4th.
Yeah. And then
Revenge
I
of the
know.
5th is the 6th.
That's right. But all the movies were released in May. So May is Star Wars month.
The original ones.
Yeah. The newer ones were not. They were released before Christmas in December.
Yeah, that wasn't their only problem.
Well, sure.
We're not going to get into the sad stuff about Star Wars. This is all a celebration of the greatest
This
movie.
is about the first and arguably the best.
Yeah, I mean, the movie came out, just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened. It was basically just a Star Crash ripoff.
Never heard from George Lucas again.
Nope.
It was
Who's this Harry Ford guy that they...
Harry
he was in
Ford,
it?
yeah.
It just came and went.
There was some Nepo baby playing the princess.
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
You guys, most of you probably haven't heard of this, but so this will be a whole new thing for you.
Yeah. Well, take yourself back to 1977.
Yeah.
January 8th, 3 bombs explode in Moscow within 37 minutes, killing 7 people. The bombings are attributed to an Armenian separatist group.
Okay.
They didn't want to be part of Russia anymore.
I get it. So they were the
Separatists.
rebels.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The separatists.
Yeah, rebels. in this vernacular, rebels, yes. February 18th, American Space Shuttle program, first test flight of Space Shuttle Enterprise mated to the Boeing 747 shuttle carrier aircraft.
And then they had little baby space shuttles 9 months later.
Yeah. They all went into space.
Because they were mated.
Back. You ever have a chance down in Telia, the Natural History Museum here in L.A. has one of the space shuttles set up, and it is one of the most awe-inspiring things I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. I remember when they were driving that thing through town. It was crazy.
It took like 65 hours because it was going 4 miles an hour.
It's big.
Yeah, it was big. It's so cool, though. April 22nd, optical fiber is first used to carry live telephone traffic.
Okay.
1977. I, for some reason, thought it was like 20 years later.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't realize it was that early.
Well, it wasn't widely used, right?
No, but I think it was the way that they made the calls between transatlantic calls sound better was through optical fiber.
Nice.
Yeah. May 25th, 1977, Star Wars opens. It was a Wednesday. It was one of the first movies to open before a holiday on the holiday weekend.
Yeah, there are all these previews now, and everything opens on a Wednesday, or if it's Friday, it's a Thursday night, or bleep, blop, bloop. But back then, it was
not common.
No, because movies were just movies, you know.
Yeah, you'd go see them, and it'd be fine. Yeah.
But after Jaws came out,
Yeah.
then they were like, okay, we have events now.
Yeah, and this definitely benefited from that, for sure. So Star Wars starts with George Walton Lucas Jr.
Yeah,
Good old Wally Lucas Jr.
Hey, Wally.
He was born and raised in Modesto, California.
That's why he's so boring.
Because he's from Modesto.
Oh, God, yes.
It's part of the Stockton, Modesto, Sacramento triangle.
Yeah.
It's the triangle of boringness.
Right. It's like if there was a Bermuda Triangle where everything was just super dull. That would be that triangle.
Yeah, well.
Have you ever spent a week? The most boring weekend I've ever spent in my life was in Sacramento, California.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Everybody leaves because you know why? Because it's Sacramento, California.
It's the triangle of boringness. His family attended Disneyland during its opening week in 1955. They all went down there to Disneyland.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Walt was there.
I just think it was interesting that eventually Lucas would sell his entire soul to Disney.
Yeah, well, his entire works.
I know.
Yeah, I got a piece of that.
I know. Lucas was obsessed with race cars growing up. He spent most of his high school years racing in an underground circuit. A few days before high school graduation, Lucas was driving his souped-up Auto Bianchi Bianchina when another driver broadsided him, flipping his car several times before crashing into a tree.
Not his Auto Bianchi Bianchina.
I know. Lucas's seatbelt had snapped, ejecting him from the car and saving his life.
Nice.
If he had stayed in the car, he would have died.
And we wouldn't have had Star Wars.
No.
No Star Wars.
None of the Star Wars. However, his lungs were bruised from severe hemorrhaging, and he required emergency medical treatment. And surprisingly enough, he lost interest in racing after the accident and focused on another obsession of his, movies.
I don't like it anymore.
It's
dumb. His racing's dumb.
You can imagine a pretty bad accident that almost killed you would probably change your mind about it.
Well, good, because, if we didn't have that accident, we wouldn't have had Star Wars.
No, he would have been a failed
or the greatest race car driver ever. He's a very determined young man, Adam.
Sure.
I'm sure whatever he had decided to do, he would have been successful at.
Well, I like drivers that don't get broadsided.
All right, Trump.
After a couple of years at a junior college and making some short films, Lucas transferred to the USC Film School. While there, he shared a dorm room with Randall Kleiser, who would go on to direct Grease in 1978. Oh my God, for a second I was like, that's not it at all. It's really fascinating because he was in school with so many people during the late 60s.
Yeah.
Like Walter Murch, Hal Barwood, and John Milius. The group of friends became a clique of film students known as the Dirty Dozen.
Dirty half dozen, quarter dozen. Yeah, I mean, look.
It's just because I didn't shower at all.
Gross. They, that's very typical in film school.
Yeah.
At least back then, because you had a lot more work to do.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had to work with film.
Everything took 10 times as long.
Good Lord, man. People, you kids don't know how easy I have it today. Man, when I worked with film, as great as it was just one nervous breakdown after another.
Oh, yeah, because if something happened to that film, that was it.
Yeah.
You were done.
Oh, yeah, and especially if it's like your final project.
Right.
And you don't have the money. You have to spend money on film, on processing, on daily. Everything cost money back then. And, whew.
You couldn't just hit your backups.
Baby, those 3 days when you turned that film until you got it back, it was just nail bite city.
Well, yeah, because especially that sometimes the developers, Kodak would sometimes screw it up, mess your film up, and it's like...
Or you didn't catch your hair in the gate. Right. Or you didn't, or some weird thing,
Bad exposure or something, yeah.
One of my films, it ended up being out of sync.
Oh, no.
The mag stock.
Yeah.
And so I had to spend...
Oh, God, yeah.
5 days, I think.
Oh, wow.
Shaving frames. Not just me, my other guys too.
Yeah.
My partners too. But we had to shave frames for like a week to get that thing. And we did it.
So much easier now. We can just hit Control B or Blade and cut that off.
You don't have to put on the white glove, and get on your Steamback machine. And
George Lucas would end up befriending Steven Spielberg during this time as well. I don't think Spielberg was part of the Dirty Dozen.
No.
Probably because he showered.
Right. Well,
there's nothing that I found that said he was part of that group, which is ironic because he certainly came on. Him and Lucas obviously went to become the most successful filmmakers in the history of USC. After graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in film in 1967, he tried joining the United States Air Force as an officer, but he was immediately turned down because of his numerous speeding tickets.
We don't want you because you... First of all, that seems kind of dumb. Because you got to go fast in the Air Force.
And this was like, Vietnam's happening right now. Like, if there's somebody that's like, hey, man, I'm going to do this.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. You're morally reprehensible with all of your speeding tickets.
It obviously shows you're reckless and you abandon all responsibility.
And you have no respect for authority.
Yeah. He was later drafted by the Army for military service because apparently they're not as strict as the Air Force.
We don't care about tickets.
But they just need bodies.
We just need them. I don't want to say cannon fodder, but cannon fodder.
Can you hold a gun? You don't have flat feet? You're in. Let's go.
Can you run?
But he was exempted from service after medical tests show he had diabetes, the disease that killed his paternal grandfather.
Diabetes.
I didn't know that diabetes would get you, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it'd get you out of service.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, diabetes, like the different stages of diabetes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is, it's a... it's a chronic disease. That,
Right.
You know, you don't want to be out on the battlefield and have your
Suddenly need a Snickers
insulin
bar
go down. Yeah, and
like,
be like, oh my God.
What's wrong with Johnson? Oh, he needs some sugar. Give him some sugar.
Yeah, his insulin levels are low.
So
Get him some crackers.
Some crackers.
You have to carry like little
oranges?
packages of oranges.
Little dried
Goldfish
oranges.
crackers with him.
Here's your mandarins, George. Eat them.
Get Lucas a snack pack. He's looking a little peaked.
Okay, I get now why diabetes should exempt you from service. It makes sense. So he actually went back to USC as a graduate student, and while there, created the short film Electronic Labyrinth THX 11384EB, which won first prize at the 1968 National Student Film Festival.
He also, at that time, when he was at USC, did a lot of these really, really incredible documentary-style films.
Yeah.
Where, if you have a chance, look these up, because it shows his technical prowess, his editing prowess. It's just the way he puts these things together is unlike anything that had ever been done before then.
Yeah.
And they're extremely effective if you have a chance.
Yeah, he was like seemed like he was going heavy into documentary. He was actually a cameraman on "Gimme Shelter," the Rolling Stones documentary. But I think it's because he met Coppola and they started working together that he kind of veered away from the documentary style.
Well, he's a gearhead, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a gearhead with
yeah.
cars, and that
Yeah.
doesn't change. He's a gearhead with cameras and gear.
Right.
And say what you want about George Lucas, his main contribution to the industry is tech.
Oh yeah,
Whether
for
it's
sure.
the sound of movies, the
Right,
look of movies,
right.
special effects of movies.
Oh, yeah, he was always-
Steadicam.
He's very similar to Cameron that way, where it's like, well, I have an idea, you can't do it yet, so we'll figure it out, and we'll make it happen.
Well, I'll just invent it.
Yeah, why not?
It doesn't exist. I'll just
not?
make it.
Yeah, innovation, it's nice.
Yeah. I mean, look, the guy changed cinema forever, and not just with creating Star Wars. But
No, but yeah, the underlying of ILM and THX and stuff.
I
Yeah.
remember when THX started in theaters.
Same.
And how incredible it was.
Oh man, that opening, the it was like bone shaking. I was like, oh my god, like sound can sound like that.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah, and it just kept getting better and better.
Yeah. So he was awarded, because he won the best film for his short film, he was awarded a student scholarship by Warner Brothers to observe and work on the making of a film of his choosing.
That's a really cool thing. Do they still do that today?
I don't think so.
That's dumb.
Yeah. I know that there's definitely like scholarships and things that the studios still do,
Yeah.
but I don't think they get this involved.
Well, I'm a member.
You remember?
Too. I'm a member. When I was in school, I had to find my internship.
Right.
Like they didn't really have a thing, and luckily my roommate's sister worked for Corman, and
Right,
she was
right.
able to get me the internship.
Right.
There, so I was a nepo baby, or an adjacent nepo.
Yeah. I mean, I went to school in Iowa. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing you could do.
Well, you go like, do the news teams or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I worked for news stations and stuff, but like it was because of friends that I knew from Iowa that came out here and got jobs that I got jobs.
Right.
You know, I mean that was totally it.
Well, look. Anybody who's thinking about coming out to Hollywood for whatever reason, know this: you need to know somebody to have a career.
It doesn't matter how good you are.
It's not a meritocracy.
It sucks. You have to know somebody.
Not a meritocracy. It is all who you know. It is a very gatekeeper business, which blows.
Yeah.
It's better now because of YouTube and TikTok, and sometimes these guys can
they can
create their
pop
own
in.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like Quinta Brunson, who kind of
Right.
rose to fame on, was it BuzzFeed?
BuzzFeed. She did her own thing for a while, got hooked on BuzzFeed, and then or hooked up with BuzzFeed, and then you know obviously is now
She's
doing
on the
her
Black
thing.
Lady sketch show.
Yeah, I mean she created Abbott Elementary. Like she's brilliant.
But she's she's the exception to the rule, unfortunately.
And that doesn't mean that she didn't know somebody
Exactly.
at BuzzFeed, or she didn't. You know, I mean, who knows? You know.
But just if you're going to come out here, get your chops.
Yeah.
Get your schmoozy chops going.
Yes.
And do everything you can to meet people, and be a genuinely nice person. Don't be a fako.
Yes.
Look, honestly, the fakos make it. You know,
they can. Yeah.
If you want to be a sociopath, you'll probably get a quicker path to it, but you won't last.
Right.
But if you're a good person and you make it that way, then you will last because people will want to work with you.
Yes, that is the key. Is that you want to keep working with people and you want them to keep working with you.
Right. Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Easy peasy.
Just be prepared for that moment when you have the chance, and then run with it.
Yeah, be prepared.
And if you're listening to us right now, we're in Hollywood, so now you know us.
Yeah, and we're super successful. We run this town.
So the film he chose was Finian's Rainbow, which was being directed by Francis Ford Coppola, a USC graduate that was revered by USC students as having, quote-unquote, made it in Hollywood.
Oh, he made it. He made it in Hollywood.
Well, he was working on features. He was directing features.
Well, Finian's Rainbow was a big-ass movie. Wasn't that Sean Connery?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was.
Like going
it
after
was
a leprechaun or something. Wasn't it like a?
I don't know. I didn't look up the. I don't remember. I know I've seen it. I don't remember.
Finian's Rainbow.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I'm gonna assume it's Sean Connery chasing a leprechaun. That's gonna be my.
Come get me, Sean Connery. Get me gold and me Lucky Charms.
Okay.
If you're hungry. Yes, I'm coming for your charms.
So apparently Coppola and Lucas hit it off, so they co-founded American Zoetrope, a film company, and Coppola convinced Lucas that his award-winning short would make a great feature.
He was right. And American Zoetrope, man, what a tootsie-hootsy name, by the way.
I know. It's really funny.
American Zoetrope.
I knew them through... they did some movies in the 90s that I knew was Coppola. I didn't realize that Lucas co-founded it with him.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until...
It was their main purpose was to do stuff outside of the studio production, like to do stuff outside the studio.
Yes, and to own their own projects.
Right.
And to foster that creativity and artistry.
Yeah,
that
let them have more control. Yeah.
Usually don't.
Right. THX 1138 or THX 1138. How was it normally?
It's 1138.
1138.
Yeah.
All right. THX 1138 was released in 1971 and gained critical praise, but was a financial failure.
It's a really good movie. You should check it out. It's got
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall stars in it, and it's a great performance by him. And it's also so much fun to see a young Robert Duvall.
Yeah. And it's moody and it's shot really well.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn, but it's so good.
It's a very dystopian view of the future, and a lot of Lucas's stuff up until then was very, I'm not going to say revolutionary, but it was very counterculture. It was very against the establishment. Like all of his documentary stuff was either anti-war or anti-this, and he had a way of doing it that was extremely impactful. And so he, like most of the guys back then, were very socially conscious about their work.
Yes. It's obvious this is a film of its time. It's an analogy or allegory for Vietnam and where the world was going and how bad it could get.
It's got tinges of 1984 and all sorts of other.
It's a great movie. It's shot really well. Shortly after release of THX 1138, Lucas started his own film company, Lucasfilm.
Ooh, I wonder where he got that name.
So around this time, Lucas decided that he wanted to direct a big screen adaptation of the Flash Gordon serials he loved watching as a kid.
Sweet.
It would be great. I would be down for Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon.
I mean, which eventually there was a Flash Gordon.
I'm Emperor Ming. I'm coming to get you, Flash Gordon. And that lady whose name I forget, who was the Flash Gordon lady?
The Flash Gordon lady, that's her full name.
Ming the Merciful. Or Merciless?
Merciless.
Nope.
He's
his
merciful.
Johnny Ming.
I would do this more to you, but I am Ming the Merciful,
Ming the
so I'm going to
Merciful.
let you go.
You can go. It's okay.
So he tried obtaining the rights to the original serials, but they were tied up with Dino De Laurentiis.
Damn it. Dino De Laurentiis just ruins everything.
He literally just went out and bought the rights to almost everything.
Oh, yeah.
He was just so much stuff.
De Laurentiis the De Laurentiis company was huge, man, up and through the 90s. And I remember I would go to De Laurentiis all the time when I would go to the university lot, because Lucas still had a working relationship with the company.
Lucas said,
I wanted to make a Flash Gordon movie with all the trimmings, but I couldn't obtain the rights to the characters. So I began researching and went right back and found where Alex Raymond, who had done the original Flash Gordon comic strips and newspapers, had got his idea from. I discovered that he got his inspiration from the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs and especially from his John Carter of Mars series books. I read through that series, then found that what had sparked Burroughs off was a science fantasy called Gulliver of Mars, written by Edward Arnold and published in 1905. That was the first story in this genre that I had have been able to trace. Jules Verne's got pretty close, I suppose, but he never had a hero battling against space creatures or having adventures on another planet. A whole new genre developed from that idea.
Coppola, who had tried helping Lucas get the rights to Flash Gordon, was a little more honest about Lucas's reaction to not obtaining the rights.
George was very depressed because he had just come back and they wouldn't sell him Flash Gordon. And he says, well, I'll just invent my own. Oh, my heart. I think I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah, it's all the wine. Lucas secured a 2-film development deal with United Artists. The 2 films were American Graffiti and a space opera tentatively titled The Star Wars.
The Star Wars.
And inspired by Flash Gordon.
Is that like the Star Wars inspired by Flash Gordon?
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. Believing that the bleak tone of THX 1138 led to its poor reception, Lucas chose to make Star Wars more optimistic.
We talked about this. This is why Star Wars is so successful.
Yeah.
Because he did, in a time in the 70s, everything was pretty bleak, especially sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
Sci-fi was all Omega Man and Soylent Green and people. Soylent Green's people.
Right.
If you didn't know. But so making the choice to have such an unapologetically heroic, positive movie with unapologetic heroes that are heroes.
They are doing what's right.
Which is a huge risk back then.
Yeah.
And if any one of the key things didn't work, whether it was story, special effects, music, or the actors, this movie would have failed.
Yeah.
But everything came together in a way to make one of the most classic movies ever made in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really impressive how it all came together.
It is, but it's also luck. But it was this choice that he made that made Star Wars the juggernaut that it is.
Which is ironic because it seems like George Lucas is a pretty sad sack all the time.
Yeah, I'm not that sad. I'm
That's
just shy.
what was missing from your impression of him was he just needed to take it down sad a notch.
Well, that was when he was younger and he was still pretty optimistic.
Yes.
He's sad about not getting Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
He was sad about
He just seems like it's really funny because I love George Lucas, but he just seems like a very kind of low energy guy.
I have met George a few times.
Sure.
Because I worked with him, you know?
Yeah.
I worked for him.
Yes.
For almost 2 decades. Yeah. And he's a super nice guy.
Oh, I'm sure.
But just shy. He's just a shy guy.
Okay.
He's just kind of like, the funny thing is they would have these elaborate parties, these rap parties for, there was a great one for Casper the Friendly Ghost that was at the Fillmore. Or, all the Star Wars movies would have these giant parties after watching the screening first at the ranch and then at the Presidio.
Right.
Great, giant parties, great food, great everything, amazing. But you would just run across Lucas just kind of in the corner.
Right.
Sipping on a Diet Coke or something.
Yeah,
and just, hey, George.
Hey.
You having a good time?
God, that would so be me at parties like that.
I mean, we just kind of, at the last Star Wars screening, I just kind of bumped into him with my friend, T. T was with me, and we just kind of had a conversation. We just stopped.
Stop talking to him.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, George Lucas.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Hey. What do you guys think of the ham?
Yeah.
It's
the
pretty
ham.
tasty. Huh? We got that. It was from a farm in Modesto.
Great.
But no, a really nice. Just
Sure.
He's just unaffected by any of that.
I could see being shy. I could see how that could lead people to think that he's kind of standoffish and
he's a craftsman. You know, it's like a guy that builds cabinets all of a sudden getting hugely famous.
Right.
He's not comfortable with that aspect of it.
Right.
He just wants to make cabinets, man.
Yeah, he just wants to tell some stories.
I just want to tell some stories.
So United Artists read the script for American Graffiti, but they chose to pass on it, and it was snatched up by Universal.
Snatched.
Yeah. Lucas spent the next 2 years making American Graffiti, with it being released in 1973. American Graffiti would end up making $140 million off a $777,000 budget, making it one of the most profitable films ever made.
Yeah, it was the perfect time, and this is kind of the beginning of nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at it, we always go about 20 years back
Yeah.
with our nostalgia. You know,
Yeah.
in the 80s, it was like the 60s. You know,
Yeah.
we were all wearing tie-dye and wishing we were at Woodstock.
Right.
You know, and in the 2000s, it's the 80s.
Yeah,
And-
everything cycles, yeah.
Right.
But the point is, American Graffiti was set in a more innocent time.
Right.
And it was about that nostalgia for that time before we had a decade of war and all this shit. Stuff that at that time Americans hadn't really dealt with. Like, you know, World War II happened and everyone was around that
this
knew
is-
about
yeah,
it.
but
But
this
it was
is- yeah.
different.
This
Yeah.
is before Vietnam turned into the quagmire that it did, and before the country rose up against to start protesting and
yeah.
knew what was wrong. It was also the best nostalgia films hit the beats, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was the car culture that he
Yes,
totally
yes.
just nailed. And the fact that people just souped up their cars and just drove around.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
in my hometown, there at Saturday night, people
Oh,
would
yeah.
just cruise.
Yeah.
You still go cruising.
Right, right.
In the 80s, late
Yeah.
70s, early 80s, people
Yeah.
were still cruising.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just like, people don't go cruising.
Oh,
I mean,
in the 80s growing up, there was a certain loop in downtown Des Moines that the police would have to shut it down every Friday and Saturday night because they'd just be racing around. And
they were just slow. They were just slowly. This is the funny thing, is the opposite is happening now. So it used to be just a bunch of people slowly showing
Right.
off their cars.
yeah, because it
And
wasn't.
now it's
yeah, now
street racing and everybody
Yeah.
going crazy.
the drag strip in front of the Gen X headquarters. But yeah, it actually was. It's funny because I was at Universal in Florida a couple months ago and got to see a bunch of the cars from
yeah.
American Graffiti. Got a bunch of video of it. I'll post some. They're so cool. They're
Well,
so
that
cool.
like Harrison Ford's yellow Roadster is like the most iconic, I
Yeah.
think. And it was just in the car hops.
Yeah.
You know, sitting out there and having the girls on the roller skates
Yeah,
bringing
come-
you your burgers
your
and
milkshake.
and everybody just jumping from car to car and having a good time. And there were all these really fun stories. There's no real plot to this movie.
No,
It's
no.
just basically-
a series of vignettes, essentially.
Let's just spend a night in Modesto, California,
Yeah.
with a bunch of kids. It was great.
It was great.
though.
It made a huge amount of money.
Yeah, and it started Happy Days, and which started Laverne and
it
Shirley.
really
which-
did start the nostalgia wave.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this was like the first real nostalgia wave, and then
Yeah.
it just kept going after that.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
like, okay,
just
let's
kept-
cash in.
People love this. Let's do it.
People like to remember when they were young and happy.
So it was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, which I honestly was not aware of.
Yeah.
Including Best Editing, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress for Candy Clark, Best Director for Lucas, and Best Picture, and it won none of them.
Oh,
Yeah, it's disappointing.
it is. But I mean, think about being nominated for 5 Academy. Your film was nominated. The first movie you make out
Yeah.
of the gate.
And he was, I want to say at that point, I think he was, because he was born in 44, so he would have been
25?
73, 29.
29?
29. But still, I mean, to be in your late 20s and be nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, like that's crazy.
Well, back then, life expectancy was much less. So if you didn't make it by 26,
You were done.
Failure.
You were done.
Old man, 29.
This isn't Logan's Run, Jim.
It should be.
So Lucas began writing in January 1973, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, on his The Star Wars. He compiled a 2-page synopsis titled Journal of the Whills, with an H, Whills.
Wheels.
Which told the tale of the training of apprentice C.J. Thorpe as a Jedi Bendu space commando by the legendary Mace Windu.
All right, CJ Thorpe. We're starting your.
C.J. Thorpe is the most non-Star Wars name I can think of.
Sounds like the 1968 Heisman Trophy winner.
It does. It
Yes.
does.
And on the field, CJ Thorpe.
Mace Windu.
Mace Windy.
I will say, Lucas, he's really good at changing names for the better.
Yeah, look, Mace Windy, lame. Mace Windu,
I mean,
sweet.
Look at THX 1138.
Yeah.
It was an electronic playground, THX 1138 4EB. And then he, it's like, all right.
Yes. He starts off a little complicated. He
does.
And then he has friends.
He
that are
edits
like
himself
George.
well, which he would continue to do with all of his movies for the rest of time.
Which was very smart because Star Wars wouldn't be Star Wars if it
Right.
wasn't for Spielberg and Coppola and his
Oh,
buddies
yeah,
that
yeah.
gave him
Of course,
notes. You
of
know,
course.
it's like It's same thing with their movies. These guys were very tight.
Yeah, yeah.
Scorsese was part of that group. You know,
Yeah,
they were all these really brilliant filmmakers.
They were very supportive. They were always about trying to make everything better.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they did, and they all
they
were
did.
successful, super successful. I mean, there's never been a time I can think of where a group, and even this Dirty Dozen group is super successful. A group of filmmakers that were almost like a Algonquin Round Table situation,
right.
That were all so successful.
It's like I don't remember the name of it, but this group in like Paris, it was a
Yes.
bunch of writers, and they all just happened to hang out all the time, but they were all insanely successful.
Right.
Like,
Well, this was also the first kind of generation of film students. Like most of the directors just kind of figured it out.
yeah, they were stage people that
Yeah.
would come in and be like, well, let's go use this camera thing or whatever.
It was in film school.
And this really was the first time with Lucas and the Dirty Dozen where they were really digging into like the technology of it and like what can we do with it.
Yes, and also with story, seeing how they could affect society in different ways.
Right.
With their
Use that
stories,
as exactly.
So it's a time unlike any other. I mean, I guess you could kind of say that there was kind of that renaissance in the 90s, when you had Tarantino and
Kevin Smith and these younger
and-
independent guys,
and, Rodriguez
Yeah.
and all these guys that kind of came up together and had that same kind of sensibility.
right.
But their films were just more like violence, baby. See how bloody and how many.
Their response to the Reagan 80s was to kill everything.
Yes, I get it.
I mean, yes, it makes sense. So Lucas was frustrated that his story was too difficult to understand. Apparently, a Jedi Bendu named C.J. Thorpe is difficult. So he wrote a 13-page treatment called The Star Wars on April 17th, 1973, which had a narrative parallels to Kurosawa's 1958 film The Hidden Fortress.
I can't seem to crack this. I'll just rip off a really good movie.
Yeah, well,
Hey, you got to steal from the best.
if you're going to steal from the best. I mean, that's the way to do it. Lucas and Coppola started shopping the treatment around. United Artists turned it down. Universal turned it down, not thinking Lucas could pull it off.
Yeah.
They wanted him to do more movies like American Graffiti, thinking that science fiction had no future in the film industry.
Well, they were right at the time because what was coming out? What was there pre-77? That was like, Zardoz and
that
these,
was like 69, 70.
But what I'm saying,
but it was sci-fi that was kind of weird and like very niche.
Omega Man in the 70s or Planet of the Apes.
It didn't have broad appeal.
No, it didn't. Also didn't have a gimmick like Planet of the Apes, where it's like, Planet of the Apes.
Right.
So they didn't understand, and science fiction, up until that point, was like horror. It was like the redheaded stepchild of the film industry.
Yeah.
It was for B movies and for drive-ins and the man with 6 brains. It was just garbage.
Yeah, that's true. Coppola brought the project to a division of Paramount Pictures he ran with fellow directors Peter Bogdanovich and William Friedkin. But Friedkin questioned Lucas's ability to direct the film, and he, along with Bogdanovich, declined to back it.
Dummies.
Yeah, that's
jealous.
Rude.
Both amazing filmmakers, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Last Picture Show is unreal. And The Exorcist.
Exorcist. Yeah. Didn't he do The French Connection, too? Was that Friedkin?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were both obviously very established, very good directors. Yeah. Disney turned it down due to the high budget they were asking. Gary Kurtz, the producer, was convinced they could make it for around $8 million. At that time, it was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, most movies had a $1, $2, $3 million budget.
Yeah. So Lucas turned to Alan Ladd at 20th Century Fox. They came to a deal because Ladd was a fan of American Graffiti.
Nice.
Ladd fully admitted that he didn't get Star Wars, but really liked Lucas and trusted him to help Fox get out of some financial trouble they were in at the time.
Look, I don't really get the Star Wars. A little over my head, I suppose, but hell, we got nothing to lose. Let's just do it. Look, I trust you. You got a good smile, George.
He knew that American Graffiti made its money because of Lucas.
Yes.
So he was like, look, that's a good executive. I don't get it, but I trust you to do it, and you're going to give me a good product.
The guys that realize the talent of these directors are the ones that are wholly successful.
Right.
But Alan Ladd and even Dino De Laurentiis, these guys recognize talent, and they would see somebody who has ambition and who has a vision and be like, okay, well, that guy is serious.
Right. I'm gonna support you to get your vision to come true.
And that's a big risk. $8 million on a space opera when sci-fi was relegated to the the bins. you know,
the dust bins.
yeah, to the drive-ins and such.
Right.
It's a huge risk.
It was. It definitely was.
And especially from a guy that made a relatively small car film.
Yeah.
You know? There wasn't a lot of big moving pieces in American Graffiti.
I'm pretty sure that at this point, Fox was still trying to recover from, I think it was Cleopatra that almost bankrupted which I want to say at that point was almost 15 years before.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
But they had to sell off like 90% of their lot. Like it's so funny because now down at Fox where it is, it's still a pretty big lot. But for a while, it was like 10 times that size.
Yeah.
And then they had to sell it all off because Cleopatra cost like $8 billion to make. And
bad. See, that's the opposite of a good decision. They were just banking on stars.
Yeah.
And the epic was over by then. Like, people didn't want to see a 3-hour
Because I want to say, I think that came out in like 63 or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't remember. It was sometime in the early 60s, but it was definitely like after the bulk of those, like 10 Commandments and Ben-Hur and stuff.
No offense to Elizabeth Taylor, but she's not very Egyptian looking. It's like Charlton Heston playing a Mexican.
Who would have done that? Or John Wayne playing Genghis Khan.
I'll tell you something, buddy. I'm Genghis Khan, and I'm coming for you with my swords.
Just as soon as he finishes populating half of China.
I'm going to have relations with all the women here, and have a I don't feel so good. Maybe where we're filming has a lot of cancer in it.
Yeah, They shot most of Genghis Khan in New Mexico.
Nuclear wasteland.
There was a lot of radiation.
Oh, man, yes.
It killed a lot of people.
Including John Wayne.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
I mean, they
did. I know, but it's amazing that we went to John Wayne dying from cancer.
I'll tell you. Yeah, if you have a chance, watch The Shootist, John Wayne's last film with Ron Howard.
So great. Yeah.
It's great.
So Lucas wrote and rewrote the script multiple times over the next 2 years, and they went on to casting. So Mark Hamill was cast as Luke Skywalker. Have you heard of this Mark Hamill guy?
No, who is he?
I don't know. Lucas favored casting young actors who lacked long experience. To play Luke, Lucas sought actors who could project intelligence and integrity.
Well, that's what you need. And he liked unknown actors because he could get him to do exactly what he wanted.
Which is ironic because, and we'll talk about this a little later, but apparently he barely talked to the actors during the shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, barely.
Yeah. He's not an actor's director.
No, he's technical for sure.
And he would be the first to admit that, too.
Yeah. But I get it. Maybe he likes the rawness, maybe, the it being more organic of a performance. And
I honestly, and I love him, I just don't think he has the social capabilities to convey what he wants.
He should have taken a couple acting classes,
maybe,
and then be able to talk to the actors a little bit better.
Just say it. Say the lines.
But he got the performances he wanted apparently.
So, he got great actors, and we'll get to Harrison Ford, but it's like, look, these guys, they thought this was silly.
Yeah, most of them did,
but they didn't treat it as such.
No.
There's no wink in any of the performances.
No.
There's no. This is all of them commit, and that's also what makes this work.
Right. And that's exactly with Mark Hamill. While reading the script, he found the dialogue to be extremely odd because of its universe-embedded concepts, but he chose to simply read it sincerely, and he was cast instead of people like William Catt, who was subsequently cast in Brian De Palma's Carrie.
Oh, yeah.
He actually had Lucas shared a joint casting session with De Palma during this, which is so fascinating.
So many people. John Travolta was up for Han Solo.
Oh, yeah.
And because everybody came in, Sissy Spacek.
Yeah.
They all
they auditioned for both because they were in there hanging out.
I'm glad William Catt the thing that works so well about Mark Hamill is he just seems like a kid.
Yeah.
He seems like a farm boy.
He seems like this kid that's tired of doing. He wants bigger and better things.
Yes.
But he doesn't know how to get out of it, and he's just annoyed, and
whiny.
he plays that so well.
I'm supposed to go get some. What does he say?
I'm gonna go get the power converters from the Toshi station.
I'm supposed to go to the Toshi station and get some power converters.
Yeah.
Come on, Luke. Man up. Get them droids out there. Lube them.
Oh, it's so good. He just does it so well. I think
he's earnest.
Catt would have been. I think he would have been okay. But I don't know if it would have been the same.
William Catt was amazing in Greatest American Hero. Love that show.
Yeah, yeah.
And he plays, but he, unfortunately, and even in Carrie, he's got a quality to him that doesn't have that kind of innocent.
Right.
It doesn't have that naive innocence that Hamill was so perfect at conveying.
Yeah.
He's just got more of a confidence to him, I think, or there's something about him that I don't think he would have nailed the character as well.
Yeah. I agree.
I think they got it right. I mean, he was great in Carrie. He was perfectly cast.
He was great in Carrie, yeah. So Robbie Benson, Will Seltzer, Charles Martin Smith, and Kurt Russell also auditioned for Luke Skywalker.
Robbie Benson. Hi, I'm Robbie Benson. I'm Luke Skywalker. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to use the Force.
Okay.
Robbie Benson's voice has always bothered me so much.
I can tell.
Oh, my God. Hey, Robbie, I'm sorry, but your voice is awful.
Okay. Hamill's early career included a recurring role in the soap opera General Hospital and a starring role in the short-lived sitcom The Texas Wheelers.
Texas Wheelers.
I've heard General Hospital. I have no idea what the Texas Wheelers is.
Yeah, it didn't last very long.
He portrayed the oldest son, David, in the pilot episode of 8 is Enough.
Yeah.
Though the role was later performed by Grant Goodeve. Did not know that either.
Yeah, because I remember watching the pilot of that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a lot of times back then, they'd make a pilot like a year, 6 months before.
Well, that's how it used to be.
Right, and then
much
they would-
more common is
right.
that someone would just make a pilot and then hand it off to a studio and go, here it is.
And then they'd run it, and then be like, okay, it did well.
The people that made the pilot may be involved and may not.
Or may have moved on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and had other commitments.
Had
so
to do other things. It was more proof of concept.
Yeah, most pilots were very different than the actual show.
Yes.
And it had a lot of different
Yes.
actors and stuff in it,
Yeah.
too.
Hamill made a few guest appearances on TV shows and appeared in some TV movies before the audition for Star Wars rolled around. Robert Englund, a good friend of Hamill's, was auditioning for Apocalypse Now across the hall and realized that Hamill would be perfect for Luke.
You'd be perfect for Luke.
It turns out that Hamill's agent had already secured an audition for him, but good looking out, Robert Englund.
Yeah, guys are good friends back then.
Supportive.
Yes.
It's so supportive.
Helped him out. England actually auditioned for Han Solo.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. But I just love the idea. I want to see a movie where it's the audition day for Carrie, Star Wars, and Apocalypse Now, where they're just hanging out, shuffling actors back and forth.
And some of the greatest actors ever.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I can imagine the energy in that hallway. Yeah. Anyway. So Harrison Ford was cast as Han Solo.
Solo.
Lucas initially rejected casting Ford for the role as he, quote,
Wanted new faces.
yeah. Ford had previously worked with Lucas on American Graffiti.
Yeah, he was the guy in the yellow truck.
Yeah. I get it. I understand. I don't think Lucas wanted to become that director that just had a stable of actors.
Right.
He which irony. He ended up just doing that.
Yeah.
But he wanted to fresh faces, new things. So
Work with new people.
Yeah, I get it. Instead, Lucas asked Ford to assist in the auditions by reading lines with the other actors and explaining the concepts and history behind the scenes that they were reading. Yeah.
Lucas and Coppola had hired Harrison Ford to do some construction work. I think cabinetry work, maybe?
Yeah.
For their Zoetrope. And then,
Yeah.
it was just like, well, why don't you just read?
Yeah. Why not? I just love the fact that he was like, hey, so can you help me out by explaining the entire movie to everybody?
I know. It's just so funny to think of the biggest Hollywood star in the world. A, just being called in to do construction, and then B, is kind of an afterthought, being like, hey, why don't you be the reader?
So they have these laser swords.
All right, so there's some laser swords, something called the Force. I don't know. It's like some sort of binding. They're midichlorians.
It was Ford that came up with the midichlorians, yeah.
I think that's what they're called. And there's a lot of weird aliens and spaceships. And,
Big tall walking dog.
yeah, there's a Chewbacca, a Wookiee.
So Lucas was eventually won over by Ford's portrayal, as you just heard, and cast him as Solo. Others who auditioned for Han Solo were...
Kurt Russell, Nick Nolte, Sylvester Stallone, Bill Murray, Christopher Walken, Burt Reynolds, Jack Nicholson, James Caan, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Perry King.
who later played Han Solo in the radio plays.
Hey, so I made the kiss in the plastics.
I want to believe that Sylvester Stallone in 1975 was a little easier to understand.
Hey, I don't believe in all this hocus pocus for stuff. You know, why don't you give me a good place? I'm on the side.
Well,
get you.
I will always forever thank George Lucas for not Hefting Sylvester Stallone as Han Solo onto the world.
Hey, you walking carpet? You say to me, you worshipful this?
So Carrie Fisher was cast as Princess Leia Organa, or Leia, as someone called her in the movie, which I forgot. One of the Rebel guys calls her Leia. I was like,
Leia.
Really? I was waiting for someone to correct it. It's like, really? Many young Hollywood actresses auditioned for the role of Princess Leia, including Amy Irving, Terry Nunn, Cindy Williams, Linda Pearl, Karen Allen, and Jodie Foster.
Cindy Williams would have been good.
I don't know Cindy Williams.
Yeah, she was Shirley in Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, that's okay.
She just passed away, unfortunately,
did, yeah,
recently. But
yeah.
she was amazing.
She would have been great.
She was also in American Graffiti.
No, yeah.
She was Ron Howard's girlfriend.
Oh, okay. That's right.
And later his wife.
And later
in
his-
the sequel.
Oh, that's right. In the more American Graffiti.
Yeah, I think they got divorced or something. More American Graffiti was bleak, baby. It was bleak.
Well, it was, yeah. Okay, anyway. For another time. Eventually, at some point, we'll cover American Graffiti.
Of course we will.
Fisher was cast under the condition that she lose 10 pounds for the role.
Ugh.
Yeah. Fisher is the daughter of singers Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah.
They were both very popular singers.
If you want to know what Debbie Reynolds was like as a mother, read this. Postcards from the Edge, Carrie Fisher's pseudo-autobiography.
Right.
That was made into the movie Postcards from the Edge, which is a great movie starring Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Playing the role. It was complicated, man.
Yeah.
Because her parents were Hollywood royalty.
Yes.
And her mom was a piece of work.
She was, they actually, her nickname when she was growing up, Carrie Fisher's nickname was the Bookworm, because she would just, to get away from her parents, she would just go read.
Yeah.
She would go hide somewhere and read.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. She attended Beverly Hills High School until the age of 16, when she appeared as a debutante and singer in the hit Broadway revival Irene in 1973, starring her mother.
Ugh. All right, then. We're taking you out of school so you can star in this with me.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to read my books, Mom.
Her time on Broadway interfered with her education, resulting in Fisher's dropping out of high school. So in 1973, Fisher enrolled at London Central School of Speech and Drama, which she attended for 18 months. Following her time there, Fisher was accepted at Sarah Lawrence College, where she planned to study the arts. She later left without graduating. Fisher made her film debut in 1975 in the comedy Shampoo, filmed in mid-74 when she was 17.
Yeah.
The film starred Warren Beatty, Julie Christie, and Goldie Hawn.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No.
Good movie, Shampoo. It's basically about a hairdresser, played by Warren Beatty.
Right.
Hence the name Shampoo.
Shampoo.
Who's effing all of his
Oh, his clients.
clients.
Yeah.
And I think including a young 17-year-old Carrie Fisher, or at least she was coming on to him or something.
Right.
Fear of commitment or some side of stuff. But it was just a total, like, he's just effing everybody movie.
Wow.
And I think Julie Christie was like his love or something. And
Right.
I don't know. Good
Weird.
movie.
Yeah.
Funny. People loved it. People loved Warren Beatty. He was the biggest
Oh,
heartthrob
yeah.
of
Yeah. He was
the
huge.
universe.
Yeah. This was the only film Fisher was in before Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Peter Cushing was cast as Grand Moff Tarkin.
Good ad mouth talking.
Lucas originally offered the role to Christopher Lee, but he declined.
I decline.
He would have been great. Lucas originally had Cushing in mind for the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Lucas believed that, quote,
His lean features.
would be better employed in the role of Tarkin instead.
He was absolutely right. And Christopher Lee ended up being in the prequel series.
He did.
As
Count Dooku, yes, the head of the Separatists.
Yes, Count Dooku.
Cushing, commenting on his role, joked,
I've often wondered what a grand moth was. It sounds like something that flew out of a cupboard.
his acting career spanned over 6 decades and included appearances in more than 100 films, as well as many television, stage, and radio projects.
God, he was so good.
He achieved recognition for his leading performances in the Hammer Productions horror films from the 50s to the 70s, including Victor Frankenstein and Dr. Van Helsing.
Victor Frankenstein. He had his severe look, though, lent himself to these performances. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
just so serious. He just had this look of like he was doing something bad.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to screw up.
Looking at you, Adam.
When Star Wars was first released, most preliminary advertisements touted Cushing's Tarkin as the primary antagonist of the film, not Vader.
Yeah, well, he was.
I mean, technically, yes, he was.
Vader worked for him, man.
And he didn't, yeah. It's really funny watching it, considering how much Vader has been built up since then.
Yeah.
That he just kind of bossed him around.
Yeah, Vader was just kind of his lackey. He was the stooge.
He was the force. He was the muscle.
Hey, come on, stooge.
Yeah.
Do what I want you to do.
Yes, master.
Go ahead and force choke that guy. Just force choke him.
Okay.
Use your magic.
Your sorcerer's ways, Vader. Nobody believes in your old sorcerer's ways.
Yeah, well. Wish he had, because then they probably wouldn't have exploded. All right. Cushing was extremely pleased with the final film, and he claimed his only disappointment was that Tarkin was killed and could not appear in the subsequent sequels.
He was so good in it. And it's funny how these old school actors are the only ones that really kind of believed in the movie.
Yeah, yeah. The film gave Cushing the highest amount of visibility in his entire career and helped inspire younger audiences to watch his older films.
It did that for me.
Yeah.
I swear. That's the thing about Star Wars is I became enamored with everybody, and I would watch everything.
Alec Guinness was cast as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Old Ben Kenobi. Lucas's decision to cast unknowns was not taken favorably by his friend Francis Ford Coppola and the studio. Lucas decided Obi-Wan Kenobi should be played by an established actor. Before Guinness was cast, Japanese actor Toshiro Mifune, who starred in many Akira Kurosawa films, was considered for the role.
Now, that would have been awesome.
That would have been fascinating. According to Mifune's daughter, Mika Kitagawa, her father turned down Lucas's offer for Kenobi and Darth Vader because...
He was concerned about how the film would look and that it would cheapen the image of samurai. At the time, sci-fi movies still looked quite cheap, as the effects were not advanced, and he had a lot of samurai pride.
It's interesting because that then goes back to that's why sci-fi wasn't taken seriously.
Exactly.
It was everything looked kind of cheap and bad. And
Look, people don't understand that this put sci-fi back on the map.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
renewed... This not only revived a lot of Hollywood...
Right.
And paid for a lot of
Oh, yeah.
homes.
Oh, yeah.
But it also completely revived, and created a completely new genre of sci-fi
Yeah.
that went on through the 70s and 80s, and really through to today.
I mean, it proved that a studio could invest money in this, and more money than they think they should, and still make money on it.
Well, it also proved that you could make a quality sci-fi product. Like,
Right,
you could make a
right.
good, compelling story.
Sure.
And it was the effects. The effects were unreal for the time.
Sure.
It was unbelievable seeing that stuff up on the screen. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why it was... Seeing it in the theater, man, it was a life-changing experience.
Right. Guinness is one of the few cast members who believed that the film would be successful. He negotiated a deal for 2.25% of the 1/5 gross royalties paid to Lucas, which made him quite wealthy in later life.
Yes, it did.
He agreed to take the part of Kenobi on the condition that he would not have to do any publicity to promote the film.
Nice.
Lucas credited him with inspiring the cast and crew to work harder, saying that Guinness contributed significantly to the completion of the filming.
Yeah, the guy was a pro, man. He was probably the most... He and Cushing were the two most senior members of the really only real professional
They only
guys.
established actors.
Well, not just actors, like the crew. You know,
Yeah,
Lucas
yeah,
was pretty
sure,
green too.
sure.
So it was
Yeah.
good. It was a smart move to have these old pros on hand
Right.
to help make the film better.
Harrison Ford said about Alec Guinness,
It was, for me, fascinating to watch Alec Guinness. He was always prepared, always professional, always very kind to the other actors. He had a very clear head about how to serve the story.
Well, and something that Harrison Ford himself would do for his entire career.
Of course. Guinness won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1957 for his role in The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Amazing movie by David Lean.
Amazing movie. He was nominated in 1958 for the Academy Award for Best Writing, screenplay based on material from another medium, for his screenplay adapted from Joyce Carey's novel The Horse's Mouth.
He was a writer too?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't think he stuck with it. I think that he just focused on the acting after that.
Well, it was nominated for an Academy Award.
But I mean, he was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty impressive. Guinness worked with David Lean a number of times after A Bridge on the River Kwai, despite a difficult and often hostile relationship.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, they apparently didn't really like each other.
Really?
But they liked working together.
Okay.
Lean referred to Guinness as...
My good luck charm.
They worked together on Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, and A Passage to India. Just before Star Wars, Guinness starred in Neil Simon's Murder by Death as the blind butler.
Oh, if you haven't seen that movie,
Highly recommend.
And we did a show on it, too.
Please listen to our episode about Murder by Death, and
Yes.
it'll make you want to watch the
Yes,
movie.
because we love it so much. And it is, if you want to see Alec Guinness having the time of his life,
In a completely different part
Oh, my God.
than Obi-Wan Kenobi.
so hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And you can tell he is just
Oh, yeah.
lapping it up like a dog lapping up ice cream.
He was a man that enjoyed his life.
Do dogs lap up ice cream?
I don't think they're supposed to. Or can they?
Well, no, it's not chocolate.
As long as it's not chocolate. Yeah, I think that's okay. I don't know. Don't have your dog eat ice cream just in case. I don't. So Anthony Daniels was cast as C-3PO. He has said that he wanted the role after he saw a Ralph McQuarrie drawing of the character and was struck by the vulnerability in the robot's face.
If you have a chance to see Ralph McQuarrie's, I have one of Lucas gave us a reproduction of one of his original
Oh, nice.
drawings that I
Yeah.
have somewhere. But his drawings are amazing.
Oh, he's
His
incredible.
concept work.
Yeah.
Oh my God! If you wanted, it's some of the stuff you're like, oh man, I wish it was that.
Right,
And other stuff,
right.
it's like, oh, because like the original Han Solo was like an alien.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had like a weird lizard
Yeah.
face or something.
McQuarrie based C-3PO on the Maschinenmensch from the 1927 Metropolis before going through design changes before production.
You've seen Metropolis.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah. If you guys want to see like the birth of sci-fi
Oh, yeah.
and a movie that's way ahead of its time and
Yeah.
is just, it's ridiculous that it was even made. Check it out.
Yeah, it's funny because the design that Ralph McQuarrie did was based off of Metropolis, but then C-3PO changed, and then they end up creating a droid based off of that design anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, but Metropolis is also just another one of those dystopian future.
Ugh,
One of the first, really.
Yeah, it can be a little hard to watch because it is a silent movie and it is 2.5 hours long, but it is so good.
I was visiting my folks in Texas, and they went to bed, and I was enjoying the novelty of having satellite TV
Oh, yeah,
again.
yeah.
And I came across Metropolis
Yeah.
on one of the classic movie channels.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing transfer, and I
Yeah.
just was sucked right in until
Oh,
the
yeah,
end. And
yeah.
it was so good to see it. I hadn't seen it in probably 30, 40 years.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Highly recommend. Initially, Lucas did not intend to use Daniel's voice for C-3PO. 30 well-established voice actors read for the voice of the droid.
Interesting.
According to Daniels, one of the major voice actors recommended Daniels' voice for the role.
Nice.
Mel Blanc was considered for the role, but according to Daniels, Blanc told Lucas that Daniels was better for the part.
He's better for the part than me.
And Richard Dreyfuss was also considered for the voice of C-3PO.
I'm a protocol droid, and I speak Butchie very well. Oh, R2, you go your own way. Oh, I'm so sick of you. Oh, go.
I'm going to go ahead and say that he made a good choice.
He really did. I love Richard Dreyfuss.
But I wouldn't want to hear him. Oh,
Could you imagine him for like 9 movies?
No.
R2, this is awful. Oh, what have I done? What did I do to deserve this? Oh.
Daniels has said that before his role in Star Wars, the only science fiction film he had ever seen in a theater was 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968.
Well, that was probably the best ones
Well-
up until then.
He was so displeased with the film that he walked out after 10 minutes and demanded his money back.
Oh,
Harsh. After Daniels was cast as C-3PO, Lucas recommended that he watch the film in its entirety to study HAL 9000's voice. And in a 2011 interview, Daniels said that he now regards 2001 as a masterpiece.
yeah, 'cause he smoked a big fat joint before the second time he
Lucas
went.
probably
and he-
handed him some weed and said, "Go, hey man,
You're gonna need this.
this is straight from Modesto."
All right, I'll try it.
So he is the only actor to have either appeared in or been involved with all theatrical films in the series.
Good for him.
He also has appeared as C-3PO doing the voice. I didn't put this in, which we'll talk about it in a later episode, but he has appeared as C-3PO in like 100 different things.
Yeah?
Like it's crazy how
Well,
much
yeah.
how much work he's gotten off of
He's
this.
like Joe Montana.
Yeah.
He doesn't with the fat Tony.
He's if you're having C-3PO, it's me.
It's going to be me.
Yeah. Kenny Baker was cast as R2-D2.
Beep, pop, boop, boop, beep.
When filming was underway in London, where additional casting took place, Baker, performing with Jack Purvis as the musical comedy act The Minitones, learned that the film crew was looking for a small person to fit inside a robot suit and maneuver it. Purvis would actually play the lead Jawa in the droid selling scene in Tatooine.
Houdini.
Yeah, that was perfect, Jack Purvis. Baker, who was 3 feet 8 inches tall, was cast immediately after meeting George Lucas.
You got the pot, kid.
He said,
He saw me come in, and he said, he'll do, because I was the smallest guy I'd ever seen up until then.
Well, yeah. He initially turned down the role 3 times, hesitant to appear in a film where his face would not be shown, and hoping to continue the success of his comedy act, which had recently started to be televised. R2-D2's recognizable beeps and squeaks were made by sound designer Ben Burt, imitating baby noises, recording this voice as it was heard on an intercom, and creating the final mix using a synthesizer. Beep, bop, boop. It's funny that it's literally not electronic noises. It's Ben Burt going beep, bop, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. Now let's just put a filter on it and we're good.
Kenny Baker was hilarious in Time Bandits.
Oh,
You got to see
yes.
his face.
Yes.
Oh, man.
So good.
One of my favorite films. I can't wait till we do that.
Yeah, we'll definitely, yeah. Apparently, and we'll talk about this more as the month progresses, but apparently Anthony Daniels and Kenny Baker hated each other.
Really?
Just hated each other.
Well, it worked.
I will research more into it and see how true that is.
Yeah, please do.
But we'll talk
We
about
got
it
2
more.
more films to
I
get
know,
through
I
their
know.
relationship.
Peter Mayhew was cast as Chewbacca. Mayhew learned of a casting call for Star Wars, which was being shot in London, and decided to audition. The 7'3" tall actor was immediately cast as Chewbacca after he stood up to greet Lucas.
Ah, you're a big fella. Let's hire this guy.
As a result of his height, Mayhew was eligible for either the role of Chewbacca or Darth Vader, ultimately choosing the former because he wanted to play a hero in the story.
Ooh, I would have picked the other.
Well, that's the thing. Lucas had originally cast David Prowse as Chewbacca, who stands 6'6", but he lobbied for the part of Darth Vader instead.
Oh, it makes sense.
I mean, they're both good parts, but yeah, you want to play hero. I get it.
Hey, Chewie is awesome.
Chewie is great. Mayhew modeled his performance of Chewbacca after the mannerisms of animals he saw at public zoos. Mayhew gained his first acting job when the producers of Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, released in 1977, discovered him from a photograph in a newspaper article about men with large feet and cast him in the role of the Minotaur.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Mayhew's working job was as a hospital orderly, a job that he kept working while filming Star Wars and its sequels.
Well, he probably didn't make a ton of money.
Yeah, but I mean, he's still getting royalties and stuff. Like,
Sure, but he probably made,
I mean-
50 grand off the first one, if that.
oh, if that. I mean,
know?
but it's the later ones. He kept working way into the 80s. Like,
Maybe he loved his job.
that's what I figured. I mean, he just seemed like a very sweet man.
He did seem like an extremely sweet man, and unfortunately, he passed.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not too long ago, actually.
No, he had a lot of health issues later in his life, but
It's the curse of being so tall. It happens.
but Harrison Ford said of him that he was one of the sweetest human beings
Yeah.
that he had ever known, and they had a good relationship.
Yeah, they were close,
for
yeah.
all their lives.
40, yeah. Lucas said Mayhew was, quote,
The closest any human being could be to a Wookiee. A big heart, gentle nature, and I learned to always let him win. You always let the Wookiee win.
can't argue with a Wookiee.
Pull your arm right out of its sockets at him.
The character did not have any lines, obviously. The Wookiee speech were made of sound recordings of animal noises.
Yeah, mostly me.
Yeah, it was just Jim. Jim was 8 years old making animal
I did.
noises.
It was Lucas just saw me in a park and was like, "Hey, you got to get that kid. He makes good noises."
So David Prowse was cast as Darth Vader. Lucas dismissed Prowse for the character's voice due to his West Country English accent, which led to him being nicknamed within the cast as Darth Farmer.
Oh, Jesus.
So mean. Prowse had appeared in a number of features and TV shows prior to Star Wars, most notably in Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange in 1971. In the United Kingdom, Prowse was well known as the Green Cross Man, a superhero invented to promote a road safety campaign for children in 1975. He also appeared in 2 Hammer Frankenstein films, one of which starred Peter Cushing.
Yeah, good to see you again.
You're still tall. James Earl Jones was cast as the voice of Darth Vader. Jones was uncredited for the part until 1983.
Yeah, we all thought it was just David Prowse.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Lucas originally intended for Orson Welles to voice the character after dismissing Prowse for the voice. However, determining that Welles' voice would be too familiar to audiences, he instead cast the then relatively less recognizable James Earl Jones.
Thank goodness.
All right, so filming. 1975, Lucas formed his own visual effects company called Industrial Light and Magic
Filed him.
after discovering that 20th Century Fox's visual effects department had been disbanded.
Yeah. Well, I mean, visual effects weren't a big deal back then.
Well, no, I mean, what were they? I mean,
It was mostly like model work and
Yeah.
floods and stuff. And you'd always look at it was so funny. Whenever Even on like the bridge over the River Kwai and stuff, whenever they would have like the actual flood and stuff,
Right.
you could see all the like the fake trees coming
Yeah,
up, and
yeah.
it just looked like they just crank it down to make it look
Right,
slower.
it was a little slower, yeah. ILM began its work on Star Wars in a warehouse in Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Most of the visual effects used pioneering digital motion control photography developed by John Dykstra and his team, which created the illusion of size by employing small models and slowly moving cameras.
Yeah, the scope and the size of things in Star Wars was overwhelming as a child. Like the shot of the Millennium Falcon getting pulled into the Death Star, where you finally see the true size of that Death
Right,
Star. It's just
right.
like, holy crap! It's so weird. The certain things that stick out to you as a child. Like I remember when Obi-Wan Kenobi is turning off the tractor beam.
Yeah.
It just seemed like that
Oh,
tube
that
went
drop.
down forever.
Yeah, it did.
And he would just fall for. It was just the scope of that.
fall
just,
for 5 years.
it, it blew my mind.
It was
like the
huge,
size
yeah.
and scope of all that stuff. Like the size of the Star Destroyers too. It was just
They were
you
huge.
there wasn't anything of that scope. It was
Right.
epic. I mean, it was truly, truly epic.
Yeah, yeah. Lucas hired Gilbert Taylor as director of photography. Taylor had lensed Dr. Strangelove and the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night in the early 60s.
Yeah.
Lucas was much more used to making movies with a smaller crew, which led to disputes with Taylor, who was much more old school in his approach to filmmaking.
Yeah.
Lucas would just move lights or tell Taylor to turn this one or that one off, and Taylor would respond by asking him to tell him what look he wanted and to stop doing his job. He literally was like, because it got to the point where Lucas was like, well, just turn this light off. And he's like, no, tell me what you want, and then I will change it. It seemed very much like Lucas didn't establish a good relationship with him at the beginning of hey, here's what I do.
Yes.
Like, let's complement each other rather than, Lucas originally envisioned the planet of Tatooine, where much of the film would take place, as a jungle planet.
Ooh.
Gary Kurtz, a producer, traveled to the Philippines to scout locations. However, because the idea of spending months filming in the jungle would make Lucas, quote unquote,
It make me itchy.
the director refined his vision and made Tatooine a desert planet instead.
Yeah, I got itchy there too. You get sand in your trousers and it's gonna make it itch.
Yeah, well, Lucas fell behind schedule in the first week of shooting in Tunisia, where they were filming the Tatooine scenes due to malfunctioning props and electronic breakdowns.
Yeah, because of all the sand getting into everything. Oh my God, there is nothing worse, especially back then when you got film cameras.
Oh, yeah.
There's, the sand gets everywhere. Everywhere.
Moreover, a rare Tunisian rainstorm struck the country, which further disrupted filming and made everything look like a big gray blur.
Gross.
Literally, Taylor was talking about how he was like, you couldn't see. They were trying to shoot the droids from far away.
Right.
And he was like, you literally couldn't see where the sky and the ground ended.
Really?
It was just these like blobs of like coming towards the camera, and it was just like, and he would turn to Lucas and be like, we can't use this.
Yeah.
And Lucas was like, no, we got to push on, and yeah.
But you had to reshoot it all anyway.
Oh yeah. Luke's home on Tatooine, that exterior part, the like weird well thing, is a still operating hotel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I mean, the
cool.
only problem is you have to go to Tunisia, but to stay there. But it would be cool to stay there.
Yeah.
It's like an Airbnb.
It's they're a Berber speaking like part of the country, so they're like usually travelers and nomads in the desert, but they have this hotel. Yeah, it's cool. During the filming of the Jawa Sandcrawler, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, who did not have good relations with Tunisia at the time, allegedly mistook the crawler as a military vehicle to be utilized against him. When Gaddafi threatened the Tunisian government, Lucas and the Tunisian army quickly moved his filming crew to a more discreet location.
Nice. International incident.
It's just a Jawa sound crawler, I swear to God.
I'm Muammar Gaddafi.
God, he was a piece of work.
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah, he's dead. While shooting, Lucas rarely spoke to the actors, who believed that he expected too much of them while providing little direction. His directions to the actors usually consisted of the words faster and more intense.
Yeah, the actors totally make fun of him because he, like we talked about, he's not an actor's director. I think it has a lot to do with him being shy or him being. It's his background too. I mean, when he started out doing these really interesting documentary style films that we talked about, it was just him cutting footage together and then having a voiceover to it.
Right.
It was basically a very solitary thing.
Yeah.
So I think, like we said, he's much more comfortable with the machines.
Of course.
than the people.
I just find it interesting because we know a director that uses words like this who's a huge fan of Star Wars, so it all makes sense.
Yeah. He's also extremely friggin' frustrating, too.
Yeah. I can imagine. Having worked with him and I would be so frustrated on set. But I mean, props to the actors for getting past that and being like, all right, well, we're going to do this job anyway.
Well, they probably found their own rhythm within it. And that's what happens. I mean, if you're working with somebody, you have to adapt to their style.
Right.
And, you could bitch and moan and complain the entire time and never get anything done, or you could, adapt, in which they did.
And make it better. Yeah. Just work with it.
So, look, if you read the script of Star Wars, it is flat as a damn flat Earth person's mind. But the actors were able to find something in it.
Yeah.
It's their personalities that come through. Hamill is so earnest and good.
Yeah.
And even though she was on acid most of the time and heavy drugs, Carrie Fisher is very regal, and she does a great job being a princess. And nobody's played a scoundrel ever better than Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah. On January 11th, 1977, before shooting one of his scenes in Star Wars, Hamill was in a car accident in which he fractured his nose and left cheekbone. Hamill later said that the story surrounding his injuries had become exaggerated.
Oh, yeah.
Confirming that he'd only broken his nose, he observed that, quote,
over the years, it's been built up to having my face reconstructed with plastic surgery.
Yeah, which it wasn't.
No, he just broke his nose and his cheek, right? And it made his cheek kind of sag, and his eye socket look different.
It just because he broke his cheekbone. That was the problem.
And his nose was weird now.
Yeah.
He wasn't... Look, Mark Hamill was a beautiful boy.
Oh, he was so pretty.
Beautiful. And just one of the most handsome guys ever. And his career would have been completely different if he didn't get in that accident. Because it wasn't like he was ugly or anything.
No.
But he was... a little rough. He wasn't pretty like he used to be.
He definitely was passed over for some parts. Yeah.
It changed his career.
Even to the point where with the visible scarring, they had hampered reshoots for the first Star Wars.
Yeah, and then they had to change, the whole Wampa thing in the second one to justify his face being all jacked up.
Right. During production, the cast attempted to make Lucas laugh or smile, as he often appeared depressed. At one point, the project became so demanding that Lucas was diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion, and was warned to reduce his stress level.
These guys, man, they're just... And here, I get it. The pressure of making a movie... The pressure of making Star Wars must have been intense, because here's a guy that's not super proven. He's been given a ton of money. He is just going by reputation alone, and this is going to either make or break him. If Star Wars didn't hit... We wouldn't have ever heard of George Lucas again.
And not just that, but Alan Ladd was like, hey, man, you're going to save our studio.
Exactly. I mean,
you know that pressure was there.
Oh, my God. And you're doing things nobody's ever done before.
Yeah.
And you're trying to completely create a genre. And I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. I can't imagine the amount of pressure.
The cast had a lot of fun, though. They did. Just recently, they released a picture. I guess Carrie Fisher was staying at Eric Idle's flat.
Oh, yeah.
When they were in England.
Yeah.
And they were having a party there.
Yeah.
And Eric Idle showed up to watch a football game. And then they were all partying. And then the Stones were recording 2 blocks away. So they came over and hung out.
Wow.
And
That's
Mark
crazy.
Hamill's like, the only reason why Carrie Fisher isn't in the picture is because she's taking the picture. And they all just look like they're having the best time.
Oh, if you ever have a chance to watch any of the outtakes from the first Star Wars, it is great. The chemistry between the actors is palpable.
The camaraderie, too.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so funny.
There's a bonding that happens when you're in something that you don't think is going to be that great. And these guys, they're trying to do the dialogue. If you look at some of the shots of Harrison Ford shooting his pistol, he's just like, me.
It's just kind of all over the place.
It looks so unnatural.
It's like, I gotta run away and shoot my gun.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they just seemed to have a lot of fun. They smoked a lot of pot.
Yeah.
And, drank a lot of booze. Yeah. And apparently, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher did a little doodle.
Yeah, well.
He was married.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Did a little doodle.
He did. He did a little doodle. You shouldn't call her a doodle. That's weird.
No, I'm calling him the doodle.
Oh, okay.
She did a little doodle.
Okay. So Charles Lippincott was the marketing director for Star Wars. As 20th Century Fox gave little support for marketing beyond licensing T-shirts and posters, Lippincott was forced to look elsewhere.
This guy's a friggin' genius.
Amazing. He secured deals with Marvel Comics for a comic book adaptation and with Del Rey Books for a novelization.
This has not been done before. I think there had been novelizations
Yeah,
of movies.
yeah.
Mostly it was books, became movies.
Yeah.
But the fact that he saw the commercial potential of this film,
Right.
It changed the way licensing was done forever.
Yeah.
And the fact that Lucas kept the rights to the licensing was the most genius move that he ever did.
A fan of science fiction, he used his contacts to promote the film at the San Diego Comic-Con and elsewhere within science fiction fandom.
So smart. This is we were talking about this too the other day.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a movie about this. I would love to see a movie about the marketing guys selling Star Wars.
Yeah.
It'd be like, it would be like Tetris or these movies coming out now.
Right.
I love these movies about these guys that are unsung heroes that nobody knows about that basically are the reason why something
Yeah.
became so successful.
Charles Lippincott. He was a genius. Word that Star Wars would be beaten out by other summer films, such as Smokey and the Bandit, 20th Century Fox moved the release date to May 25th, the Wednesday before Memorial Day.
Yeah, look, they didn't release big movies on holiday weekends back then.
No.
Holiday weekends to them were dead zones because
Well,
that's
yeah,
when
'cause
everybody got in the car,
nobody
drove
would-
to the
yeah.
Poconos.
Nobody was going to be inside watching a movie. You're
they're
going to be
all-
out enjoying your vacation
Exactly,
or your holiday.
You're barbecuing, you're doing whatever. It's the first summer holiday. Nobody wants to be in a dumb old theater.
Yeah. It's ironic how much that has changed.
Record skip.
Yeah. Yeah. However, only 37 theaters ordered the film to be shown in North America.
Oh my God.
In response, the studio demanded that theaters order Star Wars if they wanted the eagerly anticipated The Other Side of Midnight, based on Sidney Sheldon's 1973 novel of the same name.
Which was such a bigger hit. I mean, everybody's seen The Other Side of Midnight.
No one's heard of Star Wars.
No. I mean, the conventions for The Other Side of Midnight,
Yeah,
there's
they're
one
great.
almost every other day.
It is. It's crazy. So Star Wars debuted on Wednesday, May 25th, 1977, in fewer than 32 theaters and 8 more on Thursday and Friday. It immediately broke box office records, effectively becoming one of the first blockbuster films, and Fox accelerated plans to broaden its release.
Oh my God. There had been nothing like this, man.
Yeah.
The fact that people were lined up around the block to see
Yeah.
this movie, it just, living through the experience of Star Wars being released completely changed cinema,
Yeah.
completely changed movie going. It turned films into a destination rather than just a distraction.
Right,
It,
right.
it made, it just, you don't understand. I mean, people do. It was insane how just part of the zeitgeist it became, and how
right.
every news story was Star Wars, Star Wars,
Yeah,
Star Wars, Star
yeah.
Wars, Star Wars.
Lucas wasn't sure the movie would do well, and while visiting Spielberg on the set of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Lucas was convinced that Spielberg's movie would do better. Spielberg disagreed, being one of the few friends of Lucas who enjoyed an early screening of the film, so they end up trading 2.5% of the profits of the films. Spielberg still gets 2.5% of the profits of anything Star Wars to this day.
Yes, cha-ching. I make a lot of money off of this Star Wars.
He could have never worked again and still made enough money.
I know. It's
Insane how much money he's made off of this movie.
I wish I had 2.5%.
Amidst Fox pessimism, Lucas elected to forego his option to an extra $500,000 fee for directing Star Wars in exchange for obtaining the merchandising and sequel rights for the movie from Fox.
Oh, man, Fox. Who regrets that?
Yeah, they
oh,
do.
baby.
Well, it was a smart move on his part.
Absolutely genius.
Although it may have been that he wanted to use that money for the budget.
Sure.
Because they definitely went over budget.
Oh, yeah.
But, because he still wasn't sure if the movie was going to do well.
No, but what he was sure of is that if it was to continue, it was going to continue under his stewardship.
Right.
And he was going to make sure that the movies made were the movies he wanted to be made.
Right. Fearing the film would fail, Lucas made plans to be in Hawaii with his wife, Marcia, while the movie was being released. He spent most of the opening day in a sound studio in Los Angeles. When Lucas went out for lunch with his wife, Marcia, who also edited the film, they encountered a long line of people walking the sidewalks leading to Mann's Chinese Theater, waiting to see Star Wars.
How cool would that be? You're expecting your film to flop.
Yeah.
And you're out with your
It's
wife.
like, what are all these people? What are all these people
lined
doing?
up for?
Yeah, what is everybody waiting to see The Other Side of Midnight?
We're waiting to see the Star Wars.
Yeah. He was still skeptical of the film's success, even with enthusiastic reports from Ladd and the studio, so he went to Hawaii, and it was not until he watched Walter Cronkite discuss the gigantic crowds for Star Wars on the CBS Evening News that Lucas realized he had just become very wealthy.
Welcome to the CBS Evening News. Tonight's top story, Star Wars. A juggernaut at the theaters and a juggernaut at home.
In fact, he was so wealthy, and it did so well, that Francis Ford Coppola, who needed money to finish Apocalypse Now, sent a telegram to Lucas's hotel asking for funding.
I thought you were going to say he did so well that he bought Hawaii.
Yeah, no, it's just funny that like Coppola, he started with Coppola, and then he turns around and he does this sci-fi thing, and suddenly he's a friggin' billionaire.
Yeah. He went from being an intern on Finian's Rainbow to being the most successful filmmaker in history.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Even technical crew members, such as model makers, were asked for autographs, and cast members became instant household names. When Harrison Ford visited a record store to buy an album, enthusiastic fans tore off half of his shirt.
Good Lord.
Come on, get away from me. Give me my shirt back. I need that. I've only got 3.
So Alan Ladd was right. The film literally saved 20th Century Fox from bankruptcy, gaining a record annual profit of $79 million.
Good Lord.
Their previous best annual profit was $37 million.
That's insane. And that is absolutely insane. I remember just wanting to know everything about everybody.
Of course,
and
yeah.
It Star Wars just became this thing that there had never been anything like it.
No.
Where you just, like you said, nobody gave a crap about who was the special effects guy back then.
Right,
Nobody
right.
cared about the grips,
Yeah,
you know?
but
And-
it
but
did
everybody
for Star
wanted it-
Wars, yeah.
Exactly. And you were an instant celebrity, and if you were tangentially involved in Star Wars, you have a career for the rest of your life, going to conventions and signing autographs and all sorts of stuff. It was just...
Still true to this day. After 2 weeks, William Friedkin's Sorcerer replaced Star Wars at Mann's Chinese Theater because of contractual obligations.
Yeah, everybody remembers Sorcerer.
Yeah. Mann Theaters moved the film to a less prestigious location after quickly renovating it. When Star Wars made an unprecedented second opening at Mann's Chinese Theater on August 3rd, 1977, after Sorcerer failed, thousands of people attended a ceremony in which C-3PO, R2-D2, and Darth Vader placed their footprints in the theater's forecourt. At that time, Star Wars was playing in 1,096 theaters in the United States. Approximately 60 theaters played the film continuously for over a year.
Oh, yeah. Well, also that wasn't totally unheard of back then.
No, but
films would
But
stay
by this
around
point,
for-
it wasn't as common.
Right.
I mean, it had been played down more.
because there were more movies.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was more of a business. Yeah.
Yeah. In 1978, Lucasfilm distributed birthday cake posters to those theaters for special events on May 25th, the one-year anniversary of the film's release. I'm going to guess that the birthday cake posters are probably pretty expensive now.
Oh, yeah. My God.
Star Wars was nominated for 10 Academy Awards at the 50th Academy Awards, winning 6.
Yeah, I mean, people don't remember that. It was a
It was
Academy
nominated for
Award-winning
10
film.
Academy Awards. That was, at the time, I think the record was 11.
Something like that, yeah.
And so it's like, wow, man, it did way better. It won for Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects.
Yeah,
They also gave Ben Burt a Special Achievement Academy Award for his sound design,
yeah. I mean,
for literally going beep, boop, beep.
well, and among
I know.
one of my favorite documentaries, because I own the Laserdisc compilation, and it had a great set of bonus materials,
Yeah.
which was very kind of rare back then.
Yeah,
This is
at that
before
time. Yeah. Before DVDs, and stuff.
all
Yeah.
sorts of
Yeah.
And there is one of my favorite documentaries is the one about sound and watching Ben Burt
Yeah.
just go around and like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He,
I
like,
remember
hits
this. Yeah.
like a metal fence, like a barbed wire fence, and in the sound. He's like, and then I'm gonna tweak that and add this and put that in.
It's good for the phasers.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Our good friend Marty Matulis, who is in the Star Wars universe
Mm-hmm.
now, he plays Vane the pirate, who keeps sneaking away. I love the fact
He's
that
such a sleazy man.
he's so great. He's such a great actor and such a great performer. But I love that he is the Dr. Smith, of the Star Wars, from Lost in Space. Oh my. He's that version. He's that guy in
totally
Star Wars
that
that
guy,
keeps
yeah.
sneaking away. But he and I did this. I did a film where we built the sound from scratch.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite aspects of making that film, where Marty and I just finding drops or finding this or
Yeah,
finding
yeah.
different sounds, and he and I just with a recorder, like a couple of goobs just running around. It was just, I love sound design. I think I think if I had to do it all over again, I might go into sound.
Foley's amazing. I agree. I think it's fascinating because you get to be so creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had some fun when we did our immersive shows. You know, we got to combine some very, nothing like Ben Bird. I mean, come on.
Right,
But being
right.
able to combine sounds, and it's fun when you put stuff together and create a new sound, and you're like, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah, yeah. So it was also nominated for these Academy Awards: Best Original Screenplay, but lost to Annie Hall; Best Supporting Actor for Alec Guinness, but lost to Jason Robards and Julia;
Okay.
Best Director, but lost to Woody Allen for Annie Hall; and Best Picture, but lost to Annie Hall.
Ugh.
I want to say Annie Hall, I think, was nominated for 10 or 11 Academy Awards.
Yeah, well, that was back when Woody Allen was the man. Like, he was creating stuff that was different than.
Sure. I do also find it really ironic that it was nominated for 10 Academy Awards because now it went into the point where, like, sci-fi movies weren't nominated for these things.
Oh, never.
Like, the Academy just ignores.
Except for 2001.
Yeah, 2000. But I mean, later. Like, it wasn't until Cameron with Avatar, where, like, suddenly it was like, oh my God, we have to start giving awards to these giant blockbuster movies again.
Yeah.
But it was for the longest time, these blockbusters were just ignored by the Academy.
Well, they would always get sound design.
Yeah, there'd be technical
And there would be
stuff,
3
yeah.
or 4 technical awards
Yeah.
that they would always be
Art direction
Yes.
or, film editing or sound
costumes
editing.
or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You know, some pity awards.
Yeah, it would
And
be
no
like...
offense to those. I mean, they deserve them all.
Well
but-
deserved.
But yeah.
It's it would always be like, and it's just, but they wouldn't be nominated for Best Picture. Although, granted, now because they expanded it out from 5 movies to 10, there definitely are more. Although, can be argued that it makes it less effective.
Exactly.
So, of course, the movie was renamed Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope and spawned a huge universe. I want to say, I didn't write it down, but we'll talk about it next week when we do Empire Strikes Back. But I want to say, I think they added the Episode 4 and stuff in like 78. It was
Really?
like re-released in like 70. Like, he knew as soon as it became successful that he was like, all right, I'm going to do my plan, do my trilogy.
Exactly. And smart of him to make it the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then he knew that there was a story to tell leading up to that.
Right,
And then there was a story after that.
You got all this new playground to work with.
Oh, God. And we were so waiting, man. I remember when Jedi finished, and it was so depressing. And we're like, okay, when's the next one's coming?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Well, what if somebody else does Episode 7?
I don't think that'll happen.
Well, that's all I got. God knows we could talk about Star Wars for 5 hours.
We just recently, like a few weeks, last month, there was the Star Wars celebration. And the fact that there is just so much that came from this one movie, books, video games, stage shows,
So much.
burlesque shows,
Oh, yeah. Radio plays,
records,
TV specials.
TV specials, virtual reality games, a hotel, a complete part of Disneyland.
Yeah.
This is every aspect of humanity has been touched by Star Wars. Star Wars multivitamin, Star Wars cereal.
Oh, yeah.
It is everywhere and everything, and something like that should just be destroyed by now, but it's not.
No.
It's still great.
There is something, you touched on it earlier. There was something about this movie that everyone goes, I have to know everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what, I'll see it 5,000 more times because I have to know everything.
It is so rare that one thing captures the entire world's attention
Yeah.
and isn't destroyed because of the popularity.
Right.
It just got bigger and better.
Yeah.
You know, say what you will about, the post-Lucas era,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about.
The post-original trilogy era? Yeah.
Sure. Look, you and I differ, and maybe because I worked for Lucas during the prequel trilogy. I really like the prequel trilogy. I see what he was trying to do, and I get it. Out of the 3, the first one's pretty thin in terms of stuff going on, but I say the second one I absolutely love. I love the detective aspect of it with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the third one, it's one of the best Star Wars movies out of all 9.
Okay.
The Mustafar
Right.
lightsaber battle, the way that it comes together, I get it. Watching it again later, after all the hype, it just gets better.
Yeah.
You know, it's It was funny watching Star Wars again. It had not been that. I think maybe 2 years ago I rewatched everything.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But this was the first time in a long time that I really paid attention and really watched it in a way that I hadn't probably watched it since the beginning.
Right.
And it was like watching it for the first time again, finding things that I hadn't seen after seeing it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And just being drawn in. Star Wars, this Star Wars, The New Hope, is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And because we were talking about this too, there is not like a B or C story. It's all A story.
No.
Everything flies towards A story.
Yeah.
Even the little things all come together at the end.
All push towards that one goal.
Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
Yeah.
And it is such a simplistic, complicated,
Right.
beautiful film that just starts and doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Until we blow up the Death Star at the end. And what was great about, and we'll talk about this with the movies coming up, is he didn't do that. There's no way you could replicate that.
No.
You can't tell that same story because this is the origin story.
Yeah.
It's basically an RPG. You got the main character who picks up quest members along the way, and then they go for the quest. No side quests.
There's that goal, that end goal. Yeah.
Right. And he was so smart with Empire Strikes Back to split them off.
Yeah.
You know, because instead of having another rollicking adventure of all of them together, he needed to split them up and have them go their own paths to get them back together for Jedi.
Right.
It was a really well-crafted trilogy.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of it with capturing that imagination was the fact that because it is so simplistic and the plot line is not complicated of pushing through a young boy that becomes the savior of this universe. I think that the thing that captured people's imagination is the fact that it lived inside that fully formed universe so well.
And it was a dirty universe.
It was never explaining things in the universe. It was just like, this is the world we're in. You're going to catch up and you're going to follow.
And we didn't care because
But that's
we
but I
lived
think
in that,
that's
yeah.
I think that's why people were like, but I want to know. I want to know what that giant creature was. I want to know what
Right.
that thing is that the Jawas were in.
Exactly.
I want to know, how do they survive in those awful stinky robes inside that sand collar? Like, you wanted to know all these things.
Exactly. And it wasn't shiny, bright, clean.
No.
It was dirty and lived in, and it gave the world building such depth with the fact that it wasn't some shiny thing on the hill. You know, it was this.
Yeah.
These planets were dirty. There were clean, shiny planets too.
Yeah.
But it's just you're right.
It got blown up, but
Just the little things that. Well, Coruscant's Tony. But yeah, I mean, it's just like the little things in the background. And again, we watched it on Disney Plus. I have the original DVDs and I have the Blu-ray. I have them all because I got them all from Lucas.
Yeah,
I even have the laser discs still. I don't have a means to play it,
well, right.
but I have them, which I personally think is the absolute best version of the movies.
Yes.
The Japanese laser disc transfer, but but with I think they must have upped the visuals on the 4K version.
Yeah.
Because it blends so well now. Like the new stuff.
The special edition stuff looks so much better.
It is so well integrated that it's fine. And all of the people that say he ruined your childhood, this guy, he's finally making the films he wanted to make.
Right.
He didn't have the technology to get certain things that he wanted, so he decided to do it. That's his prerogative. These aren't your films.
And
These are his films.
Right. But everything he did in those special editions was to give more depth to that universe.
Yes.
None of it is like, I'm going to change the plot. I mean, people could argue with Solo shooting first, but at the same time, it's like he was just trying to expand that universe. In his head, you don't see this well-formed of a universe. Like, the only real comparison that I can think of is like Tolkien with the Lord of the Rings, where it's like, this is the world and you're in it.
Or Star Trek. I think Star Trek has become that.
Yeah, Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, even the original was kind of that way. Yeah, but it's so rare, and it's like, and to be this 2-hour movie that it's like, yep, here we go, and it was such and that's why I soured on the special editions at first, because I loved the original so much, but I realized that it was because he wanted to make it more the vision he had in his head.
Exactly. There were some things that he was embarrassed about that he didn't like, you know, some mistakes that were in the film that he wanted to fix. And that's his prerogative. I know that we collectively feel like we own these things that become so big and become
yeah.
so important to us.
Sure.
And people lose their effing minds over this stuff. I mean, they lose. There is nothing
I know.
more toxic than toxic fandom, and it's disgusting.
You want a good example of that? Watch some reaction videos to the latest Mandalorian episode.
Oh,
I shouldn't
God.
say the latest, episode 6.
The Jack Black Lizzo
Lizzo
one, which I loved, and I love seeing them.
It has been so divisive.
And the response that Lizzo gave about the fact that her father showed her these movies in
Right.
reverence, and that it was such a big deal to him and to her.
Yeah.
And that if he was still alive, how proud and amazed he would be that she's
Right.
in this universe, and how truly magically it means to her.
Right.
And how F all of you.
I mean-
she's amazing. She was fun in it.
She was great.
Jack Black was fun.
was great.
It was a fun episode. And that's the thing. Star Wars is fun.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be a dark, bleak. Yeah, there's dark stuff. But you know what?
Sure,
Light
sure.
always prevails.
It's literally the theme of the entire
Yes.
franchise.
Light over darkness.
Right.
And so be light, people. Don't be darkness.
It's really awesome to see the newer stuff and seeing the sons and daughters of people that grew up on this.
Oh, yeah.
Like Katie Sackhoff getting her dad to come in and like sit inside a cockpit and like him just looking so giddy.
Oh, my God.
Because it was a dream come true.
Yes, these new guys, Filoni and
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau. These are the guys like me that just fell in love with Star Wars, fell in love with film
Right,
and filmmaking
right.
and acting, and everything was because their life changed when they saw that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
My life changed when I saw that movie. That is not an overstatement.
No, no.
The toys. I played Star Wars for years, man.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just the biggest part of my life. I had all the comic books, all of the books,
Yeah.
all of the things you could
yeah.
have. Talk about somebody who's just completely into it. I remember getting the Empire Strikes Back comic book before the movie came out and having the whole Darth Vader thing spoiled for me and being so upset that I would never buy another one again before that. But it meant so much to me. And as somebody who grew up in a difficult situation sometimes, there was a comfort in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
There was a comfort in my action figures.
Yeah.
And being able to escape into that world to get away
Yeah.
from the awful realities of life saved my life, I
Right,
would say.
right,
You know?
right.
And that's not hyperbole either.
No,
It's
no,
just,
I would. Yeah.
there's a reason why it means so much to people. And it's not just a movie.
No.
It's something else.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's times when certain things transcend what they are and become a juggernaut, or I don't know how to explain it. They become a
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
world event, or
Yeah. Yeah.
they change the fabric of society in a way.
Yeah.
You know, it changed filmmaking.
It's every once in a while you get these movies that create these cultural shift.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and it's just incredible to be able to be a part of that. And these movies, especially the first one, made me realize that I wanted to tell stories.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to tell a story about some kid that is going to be the savior of the universe.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like it's like, wow, you can do that. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and it's as much as I loved the Ray Harryhausen Sinbad movies and
Yeah.
and Jason of the Argonauts, and
Yeah.
this was the first movie I think that I wanted to live in that world.
Yes. Yes.
That world was so defined and so cool that
Yeah.
I just wanted to live in it and go to this different planets and have my own spaceship,
right.
You know, and fly around on my Millennium Falcons. It's just, I am so happy
good.
that we're doing
Yeah.
these movies this month because they were so important to me. And and watching this movie again and doing this episode just kind of reinvigorated that love that I had.
Right.
That I've never faltered, you know, on my Star Wars love.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Same. I mean, even with my general dislike of the prequel trilogy, I still love the entire series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still not every episode of every Star Wars show is going to be great, and I'll dislike some of them, but that doesn't dim my view of Star Wars at all.
no, the Star Wars Holiday Special didn't ruin everybody.
It should have.
But just
we'll definitely talk about that next
yeah,
week.
but the animation that's come from it, all of the different shows.
The
and-
books. The
Yeah.
books. The saddest day for me was when Disney bought all, ILM and all the rights to all this stuff. And then they essentially went, yeah, all that stuff you guys read about, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore.
And there were such good stories.
And it's this is why I really love Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, because they're pulling some of those characters, non-canonical characters, back into the canonical timeline.
Admiral Thrawn, who is the new big bad.
Heir to the Empire is the greatest trilogy series I've ever read.
Yeah,
Oh
it
my
is great.
God, it's so
There
good.
is such. Read some of the books.
so
Get
good.
yourself some books if you love Star Wars. You can do anything. You can look. The Lego Star Wars game was amazing. There's a new Star Wars game that just came out. That's probably great. We'll probably do a little bit on it.
Starring Anthony Daniels.
We could do a 10-hour show just on Star Wars.
I know.
And we will. So buckle up, babies. But look, this is going to be such a fun month and such a month of joy.
Yeah.
And that's the truth about it. This is joy. This movie was joy. The reason why people went to see it 5-6 times in a row, they would just rebuy the ticket.
Literally getting out and getting back in line to go
Exactly.
buy for the next. Yeah.
Because it is it's just a rollicking adventure where the good guys win and the bad guys are bad and the good guys are good. And you got Han Solo who's kind of in the middle, but he's always going to be the good guy. He's going to do the right thing.
Poor Chewie not getting his medal.
Yeah, that's the one thing that still, that bugged me the day I saw the movie as a child.
What?
Up until this day.
Why? Why would he not get a medal?
And you know what, George? In your stupid special edition, could have CGI'd a damn
added in
medal
a
on
medal.
his thing, on his
Yeah.
chest.
Yeah.
Just give Chewie a damn medal.
Yeah. Well, right. Medal or not, he doesn't. But that's the thing, is that in my head, I immediately go, well, maybe it's in the Wookiee culture that they don't accept these kind of baubles and things.
Maybe.
Maybe that's not their thing.
Maybe they're racist.
I'm justifying for the franchise. That's how much I love it.
It's true. It's true. That's the other thing that's really fun is people just make stuff up to fill in the gaps. And, the cosplay, the people's costumes that they put out.
God, it's incredible.
It's insane. I mean, Jediism is a literal religion now.
Yeah.
A movie created a religion.
A good friend of mine growing up had a kid, and her name is Jedi.
Okay.
He named his kid Jedi.
I don't know if I agree with that, but that's okay. That's cool. I mean, look.
She's awesome. She's a cool little kid.
Jedi, I'm sorry, that is a cool name. Especially with all the other
It's weird.
names
I won't disagree. It's weird. But hey, man, he loves Star Wars.
Well, and people are going to think that name's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, if I met a Jedi, I would be like, you got the coolest damn name.
You won.
Your name is Jedi Windy.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week with Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So excited. I have not seen Empire Strikes Back in such a long time. I'm so excited to watch it again.
Yeah, so get yourself some movies. Watch Star Wars. Get caught up with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. But also, watch the shows. Watch the
They're
cartoons.
fun. They're so much fun.
If you've missed out on the Clone Wars cartoons or the Star Wars Rebels cartoons, watch those because Dave Filoni filled in the gaps, and he essentially, with the Clone Wars, completely rounded out that trilogy into something that is much more meaty than it actually was.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week.
He and Coppola had hired Lucas to do some construction work
Right.
on the Zoetrope.
No, hired Ford.
Who did I say?
Lucas.
Sorry.
I don't hold a hammer.
Carrie Fisher's pseudo-autobiographical... Jesus. Carrie Fisher's pseudo-autobiography.
Right.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled program, Square Pegs, already in progress.